Hello, ladies. How are you? Making a few little adjustments here to my computer to get ready for this. So, such a bummer that we aren't able to meet in person. The weather gremlins are out there, but I hope everyone is able to stay home and stay toasty. Or if you have to go to the office, you're able to bundle up and just stay cozy while you're out and about today. And so my hair looks a little different, but I will assure you the purple is still alive and well. So little TMI, but you all know me. I was going to do my hair first thing tomorrow morning, and then all this happened, and it's already 7 o'clock, and I'm like, I am not going to take the time to do my hair for this. I'm going to knock this video out and then go get some supper and enjoy the rest of my evening. So would much rather be there with you in the morning, for lunch, but totally understand. All right. So here's what we were going to talk about. We going to create your verb for 2026. And I know there's lots of stuff out there about creating your word for the year and all that kind of stuff. And if you've already done it, fantastic. No worries. That's wonderful. But this is a verb. And verb is action, right? Like that is actually moving, doing something that produces some type of a result. So anyhow, so this is what this is all about. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to switch over here so that I can see my screen a little bit better, but you'll be able to see. And this is going to be emailed to you. So never fear, no worries. You will have it. You'll be able to work right through it. And I'm going to make it editable. Yeah. So that you can actually like do the work and all that kind of thing. So there's just a whole bunch of benefits of doing this that you can read over. So what I want you to do is really think about this and imagine it is New Year's Eve on December 26th. And believe me, it's going to be here before we know it, right? Like it's already, January is already like 3/4 of the way over, or 2/3, or for those of you who are good at math, you'll do better at configuring that than me. But so thinking about what did you do? What did you do and what have you achieved? So just thinking about those types of things and just imagine what that is like. So what's most important about this particular activity is what you did, not what you accomplished. And so if you wrote your first book, that is absolutely fantastic. So what you did was you wrote, and so yes, you accomplished writing a book, but what you did was you wrote. And so, and there's other things that come with that, like, brainstormed and perhaps you had a coach. And so these are things that you did. So you attended coaching sessions, you brainstormed, you wrote a manuscript, you edited a manuscript, thinking about those types of things. But thinking about, something big that you did. Perhaps you changed jobs, perhaps you got a promotion or something along those lines, but you would have had to have done something for that to happen. Your accomplishments are any awards that you received. And so, and actually getting a new job or getting a promotion is an accomplishment, but you had to have done something in order to get there. Perhaps you earned a degree and And so the fact that you graduated from college, that's a verb. You did the work, and you graduated from college, and your achievement is the diploma that goes along with that. And so there's a fine line distinction there. And I know it's semantics. Some people can say they're, so closely related and get caught up in the semantics of things, but we're focusing on verbs. All right. So it's those things that you actually did, that you actually performed, that you actually executed, that got you to that accomplishment, or just things, perhaps you had a baby, that's a big verb, right? So, of course, it's an accomplishment as well, but it, all of the things that it took to go through that, attending prenatal care appointments, and meeting with a birthing coach, or I don't know. So you get where I'm going with this. And so the point is for you to start looking at the different things that you did throughout the year, and start to look at the action words, the verbs in the sentences. Okay. And which one appears the most, and then which one gives you the goosebumps, which one is the one that you're just like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, and I'm so glad I did it, or that hard work was worth it, or and it lights you up in some way. It makes your heart smile, gives you goosebumps. I don't care how you want to label it, but something that just really touches you in some way, in a deeper way, and really looking at those types of things. And because anytime you can tie an emotion to an action, it significantly increases the likelihood that you're going to be successful with that action. So there's a little psychology there for you. So now this is the part that everyone's like, ew. Why are we talking about this? So want to think about editing your obituary. All right. And maybe a little bit morbid, but it is so clarifying. And so if someone wrote about your leadership legacy, what verb would define your impact? And so so these are just a couple of examples, and like mine is definitely like an explosion, right? Like explosion, explosive, boom comes to mind. And I like, wherever I was, I left a massive imprint, a massive impact. And it was because I showed up with bold statements, and I stood behind those statements. And I said things that were perhaps things that people are in ways that people have never thought of before, or I took an old concept and flipped it on its head, or something along those lines. And so what would your legacy verb be? Now, this isn't your verb of the year. This is what this is like, what do you want to be known for? And not everyone is going to be have the big and bold like mine, and that's okay. You're designed to be one of one. You're designed to be unique for who you are, just like I was designed to be exactly who I am. And so don't worry that it's not big and bold like mine. That doesn't have to be yours. Okay, your legacy verb can be giving, or caring, or loving, or something that's a little softer. It doesn't have to be as explosive as mine. See what I did there? This would be a whole lot more fun if we were in person, instead of me laughing at my own jokes. uh, so here's the energy audit. And one of the things, what are the things that suck your time, right? Like and I hear this from women all the time. So I'm just going to use this as an example, scrolling aimlessly through social media. And before you know it, a couple hours goes by and you're like, what? I was literally going to do that for 15 minutes. And now a couple of hours have gone by and it's just sucked my time. So, what are those types of things that make you lose track of time? And I was actually going to bring a couple. I'm a visual person and I like props. So, I have this time cube, this time blocker cube that I use all day, every day. And this helps make sure that I don't lose track of time on those activities that I know can get me going down a rabbit hole where I can get lost in time. The other one that I hear all the time is checking email. Checking email is another one that it's like, oh, I've got like 5 minutes. Then I need to be working on this project. And the next thing you know, 45 minutes goes by and you've checked your email for 45 minutes and you're like, bah, now I don't have as much time as I thought to work on the project. Okay. So this little block here can be a huge time saver. They're like $8, and they have all different, you can buy ones with all different time increments on it to best suit your style and your schedule. So that's the beauty of it. There's all kind, I mean, you can set, a reminder on your phone. Your laptops and computers have them, whatever, just something so that you don't get lost in those. But be honest with yourself. That's the big ticket here. That's the big takeaway, is really be honest about those things that suck your time, that you can get lost in. And circle the verbs. Circle the verbs that are associated with those. And those will be the verbs that you do the least of throughout the rest of this year. Okay. So now you take a look at all of your different things, and you look at, your top three verbs. You can look at your legacy verb and the different things, and think about the things that you did last year, not your accomplishments, the things that you did last year that actually resulted in your accomplishments. And see if any of those resonate. See if any of those are the verb of 2026. See what's missing. That's the other piece of it, is like, oh my gosh, I got so focused on this that I forgot about that. So see what's missing. And you might need to add some other verbs to your short list of ones to consider for 2026. And so now you can just pressure test each one, and because your verb, much like your goals, should scare you. They should scare you a little bit. And if it makes your butt pucker, even better. If it's like, oh my goodness, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Like I've jumped out of an airplane. My butt puckered, I'll tell you what. But I'll tell you what, I would do it again and again and again. It was so much fun. It was so exhilarating, and I loved every moment of it. But it scared me and my butt puckered. But that was a great goal. That was a great accomplishment. And I did it. I worked through my fear. I overcame my fear and jumped out of an airplane. I want them to be big and I want them to be scary. And because nothing happens, I should say, no growth happens inside of your comfort zone. So pick a verb that's uncomfortable for you. Pick a verb that's even maybe a little bit uncomfortable for you to say. So my verb for 2026 is explosion or explosive. And it does make me a little bit uncomfortable because some of it has to do with our political climate, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because no one wants to talk about that, right? But people get so sensitive about words and different kinds of things, and so it does make me a little bit nervous to say it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be true to me, and I'm not going to change my word to meet someone else's narrative or to make someone else feel comfortable. I'm just not going to do that. And so I actually met with my coach and had a big conversation about that. And because she challenged me about it and said, is really that the verb that you want to land on for 2026? And I thought about it and I prayed about it and I just sat on it and I said, absolutely. I said, there is just no other word that rises to that level that I wanted it to rise to, for what I want to accomplish, how I want my 2026 to look like. And so I'm sticking with it. Is it going to make other people uncomfortable? Possibly. But at the end of the day, it's not their verb, it's my verb. And it only has to mean something to me. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone else. So, and then the other piece of it is, can you do this verb every day? Or almost every day, like reality, want you to enjoy self-care, want you to enjoy vacations and time off and with family and all those different things. Absolutely. Those are important 100%. But almost every day, if you I have a whole system of reverse engineering your goals where you break down a really big goal into daily tasks that take about 15 or 20 minutes. And if anybody's interested in that, shoot me an email. I'll be glad to talk to you more about that. But because that's how goals get accomplished. That's how the needle gets moved. That's how big things happen in a fairly short amount of time. And that's by breaking a big goal down into just 15-minute increments. And everyone has 15 minutes a day. You might say, no, I don't. I don't. I never have 15 minutes a day. Well, if I dove into your calendar, I guarantee you I could find 15 minutes a day. But that's that, I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the other thing is this your verb or is this someone else's verb? Remember, my coach, she wasn't trying to talk me out of, well, she said she wasn't trying to talk me out of my verb, but my verb made her uncomfortable. At the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to. And so that's why, one of the reasons why she challenged me. And as a good coach should, she challenged my thinking, and that's what a good coach does in that regard. But she admitted to me, she's like, your verb makes me a little uncomfortable. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Her name's Michelle. I'm like, doesn't matter, because it's not about you, it's about me. And yeah, it makes me a little uncomfortable to say too, because of how people are going to perceive it. But at the end of the day, there's nothing else that compares. There's nothing else that rises to that level. So I'm not willing to compromise and change. And so, so I'm sticking with it. So really think about, because if you're borrowing your verb from someone else, it's not going to mean as much. It's not going to have the impact that you want it to make. And it's going to increase the likelihood that it's not going to be one of those tools that sustains your momentum throughout the rest of the year. So now you're going to land on a verb. Now I want you to make a quick decision. This isn't something that you should, be pondering for hours and hours and hours and hours. Now you can look at this verb and do, meet with a mentor, a trusted advisor, a coach, an accountability partner, a bestie, whatever, and have a conversation around that verb and really, and there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. There's nothing wrong with making adjustments or pivots or something like that. But the more you make adjustments, the more you pivot, the longer it is that you're going to reach achievement. You're going to reach the point where you're able to execute. So make a decision quick about that verb, and then stick with it. All right. And I'm going to give you some strategies that will help maintain the momentum and help that verb stick throughout the rest of 2026. And that's the anti to-do list, right? Like everyone has a to-do list that's 9,000 sheets long and it's got a million check marks on it. And if yours is like mine, I've got stuff written here, there, everywhere, sideways, upside down, in corners, arrows pointing back and forth to different kinds of things, you know, and it's all over the place. So, but most to-do lists are shame spirals in disguise. And so what do I mean by that? It's they're overly ambitious, they're unachievable, and they focus more on the perfection of saying, like, I checked everything off of my to-do list. But it creates gaps between what's listed on that to-do list and what's achievable. Okay. And so like one of my to-do lists in 20, let's see, it's 2026. So in 2024, I rebranded and I redid my website. That took an entire year. And you might be thinking, oh, I know someone who designs websites and they can do it in a week. Sure, absolutely, when they're given all the details. I had to come up with all the details, all the branding. I had to do all the market research, and I wanted to do it right. And the market research alone took me hours and hours and hours. It actually took me weeks to get it right so that I could speak the language of the woman who is reading my website. And so it took time. So it wasn't achievable for me to put that on and say, like put it on my to-do list for January 1st and say, you're going to get this done by February 1st. That wasn't realistic at all. So it took me a year because I wanted to, there's no such thing as perfection. And first of all, when's the last time you were perfect? And when's the last time you executed something so perfectly and so flawlessly that that's all that you ever do is flawless execution? I'd love to hear those stories. Hint, hint, wink, wink. They don't exist because no one's perfect. Anyhow, but what this leads to is if I would have done that, then I would have felt like a failure. I didn't reach my goal. I wanted this done by February 1st and it didn't happen. It was unrealistic. No way. I mean, sure. Could I have put out a website by February 1st? It would, yeah, but it would have been crap. It would have been junk. It would have had no substance behind it, no substance of value behind it. And so, sure, I could have put something together and thrown it up, but it wouldn't have been good. So, and then, there's self-blame, like the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and if I wouldn't have volunteered, for this one committee at work, or if I wouldn't have said yes to being on that nonprofit board, or whatever. And it's this terrible cycle that as women, we can go down fairly quickly and we can beat ourselves up for in a pretty massive way. So, and it just fuels that negative self-talk, and none of us need more of that, right? Like we just don't need any more of it. We actually need to reduce that. So anyhow, what are some things that you would like to stop doing in 2026? So what is the anti to-do list, And it's like, perhaps it is, how many times have you rewritten your to-do list already in 2026? I mean, think about that and be realistic. I know women who already they're on their like 11th iteration of their to-do list, and it's only 19 days into January. So that's not an effective use of time, and that's going down a shame spiral, and you're just second guessing yourself and stuff like that. And for some, especially women in business, that can have a lot to do with priority management. Like they're not sure what to prioritize, and so they just start putting a whole bunch of stuff on their list of I need to get this and I need to get that, and sure, they might be things that they need to do, but maybe not things that they need to do today. So, that type of thing. So if you have any questions, once again, if you have any questions about this, please reach out. I'm going to make sure you have all my contact information because, this is different than if we were in person and you could ask questions and stuff. So we're going about this in a little bit of a unique way, but I just didn't want any more time to go by in 2026 without you having this information. Because I didn't want you to start behind the eight ball when it came to executing your verb of 2026. And then the productive procrastination mapping. So think about the things that you procrastinate on, and here's what procrastination, at its finest can look like is, like I particularly like I cannot stand to iron. Like ironing to me is the absolute worst household chore that there possibly. I'd rather clean a toilet than iron. Okay, so I will do anything else but iron, and now I'm just a Lord. It just goes to the dry cleaner because I'm just not doing it. But back in the day, and it's like, oh, can't iron. I gotta mop the floors. I gotta get down on my hands and knees and scrub the corners. And oh, now I gotta go mow the yard. And oh, the neighbor stopped to talk. And the next thing you know, it's 8 o'clock at night. And now I'm too tired. And the ironing's just gonna have to wait, right? Like you know what I'm talking about. So really be honest with yourself, but the things is use that to your advantage. Okay, you can use this productive procrastination mapping to your advantage. And so here's how. So if you're, just as an example, if your verb is to build and you procrastinate by helping others, offer to help someone build something. Do you see what that, do you see how that works? And then do a micro version of that verb. And so with mine being explosive, and mine has to do with like um, making decisions and making an impact. And so an example for mine, because it's a little more uncommon, and you might have an uncommon verb as well. So a micro version of my verb can be, having a conversation with a woman during a networking call, and she shares something with me and say, one explosive action that you can take right now, as soon as we get off of this call, is, and then I can talk her through something that's relevant to her, that's relative to her business, and those types of things. So that's how I can use that. And the other thing is, remember, I like props. So this is my little Eat the Frog. If anyone's familiar with Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy, if you've not read that book and you're a procrastinator, don't procrastinate anymore and get it. You can get it on thrift books for like $5. But Eat the Frog, this is my little visual reminder to do the things that I don't want to do first. Get them done. Every activity in my business that I don't want to do gets done on Monday, period. It's non-negotiable. And then I have the rest of the week to work on the things that are enjoyable to me, and I save my most enjoyable activities for Thursday. I typically don't work on Fridays. And so Thursdays I have something to look forward to because my most enjoyable activities happen on Thursday. I've ate the frog. I got all those activities I don't enjoy doing done and out of the way. They're over with, because here's what happens if you don't eat the frog. You think about it. You think about it and you think about it, just like me and ironing. So while I'm scrubbing the floors and scrubbing the toilets, I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, I still have ironing to do. Ugh. And that negativity impacts your energy, it impacts your thoughts. And so, where if I would have just done the ironing first and gotten it over with, then I could have moved on to more enjoyable activities and have something to look forward to and save my most enjoyable activity for the end. Does that make sense? I mean, it's a little bit of a psychology, but use that to your advantage and just eat the frog. And like I said, if you're a procrastinator and you haven't read the book Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy, $5, it'll be the best $5 you ever spend, and you can read it in like less than an hour. So it's super super quick, and it's on, there's lots of, on YouTube there's free audio versions if you like the audio book. So anyhow, so this is your redirection strategy. Whenever these little procrastination things creep up into your life, how are you going to redirect that? So if you're procrastination method is to over pray or over plan or overthink. And it's like, okay, this is where you can help someone else who's in that situation, or ask someone else to help you. And it's like, look, have an accountability partner or coach or a mentor or your bestie and say, I'm really overthinking this. I'm really, I keep praying about it. And it's just weighing on me. Have them help you, or you help someone else who is experiencing or doing the exact same thing. And so it still keeps you productive and moving forward, and it breaks the pattern, it breaks the cycle, and you're slowly learning a new habit and unlearning an old habit, if that makes sense. But you got to be conscious about it. And in order to be conscious about it, you got to have this plan. You got to have a plan. So this will help you. And I hope that this is a working document. This isn't something that you just look at once and you never revisit. This is a working document that you can go back and review and look at and different things. So, anyhow, so just be very, very conscious of that, and use this as your guide to keep moving forward. Now, the other thing about this is, the failure pre-mortem. You look, life is going to happen, right? Your basement's going to flood. Your child's, going to get sick and have to come home from school. Something's, you're going to get a flat tire. I don't know. Something is going to happen, and life is just going to get in the way. And so you got to prepare for those moments. All right. And you can't let it, stop your momentum. So I had surgery at the end of October on my right hip. I did not have a replacement. That's the first question I always get asked. It was a repair, pretty complicated repair, but I was in a wheelchair for 2 months and stuff. And so I could have let that setback, that physical mobility setback, get in the way of my progress. And December ended up being a record-breaking month to me. I've been in business for 13 years, and I broke a record in December because I didn't let it get me down, but I planned for it. I planned, and I was like, what's that saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, or something along those lines. I think I got that right, but just be aware. And so, but these are some of the things that get in our way, whether we intend for them to or not. I mean, obviously, life's going to happen. We have no control over that. All right. And so, as women leaders, we just have to roll with it. We've got to do the best we can with what we have under the situations. We need to call in the troops when we need to call in the troops, and all the different things. But here's some common failure modes that we often overlook that I want you to be conscious of, and I want you to just circle the ones that all apply to you. Overthinking instead of executing. Planning feels productive. Is it? What do sure, you're mapping out a plan, but if you map out a plan for 12 months, what happened? I mean, there was nothing happened. And so now you're going to start 2027 with the actions. And then how much has changed over that year while you were planning? And, there's just a lot to think about there. And action can feel risky. Those big goals and verbs that scare you a little bit and make your butt pucker just feels risky. It feels risky to say, or it feels risky to even execute. So, planning to win will get you nowhere without action. So you can plan to be successful all you want, but unless you do something behind that to get yourself to whatever your definition of success looks like, nothing's going to happen. And then, or setting goals without designing support systems. That's why I created this whole system of reverse engineering your goals, and getting them down to micro commitments every single day to ensure that you're going to reach those big goals for the month, for the quarter, for the year. And so once again, if you are interested in that information, I can shoot that over to you. And then this is a big one, especially for women. The invisible layer labor that no one sees. This is our emotional management, our household logistics, and our mental calendars and energy that gets spent before the weekday begins. Think about it. When you wake up first thing in the morning, what do you think about? Whenever you are brushing your teeth, what's going through your mind? Whenever you are driving either to drop your kids off at school or to work or to the next meeting or to a client meeting or whatever, what's on your mind? Um, and so because of this invisible labor, you're exhausted at the end of the day. I hope some of you are sitting there going, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I never thought about it like that before. I hope some of you are actually having that thought right now because it's true. You wonder why? There's a lot of other reasons why you could be exhausted, but this is a big one. And how much heavy are your emotions and the thoughts that are going through your mind. They weigh you down and they get you exhausted. Okay. But I have a solution for that. Or wait for clarity before moving. Clarity is demanded up front, even though it only shows up after motion starts. So, so here's the thing, you got to start somewhere. You just have to start somewhere. You don't get anywhere without putting one foot in front of the other, right? But sometimes on your walk, there's a crack in the sidewalk or there's a big cone that's in your way that you didn't plan on. So you've got to go around it. You've got to take a detour, right? And so, but you didn't have that clarity when you first set out. So now your map has changed, your actions have changed, the direction has changed. That road's closed. They're repairing the sidewalk, you can't go that way. Well, that my plan was is I was going to go that way. Now I have to reroute, now I have to redirect. Okay, so you didn't have that clarity in advance, now you do. And now with that clarity, you've got to make some new decisions, you've got to change directions. You see where I'm going here with this? And then while you're experiencing that clarity, and it's like, oh my gosh, so you're going someplace new, you're going a different direction you weren't planning on going. What do you see? What are the things that you are experiencing that you've never experienced before? What are the thoughts going through your head that you're like, I have driven past that 1,000 times and didn't even realize that that was there, because you're seeing things differently, and your mind is open and different kinds of things. And you're like, oh my gosh, I like this route so much better, and I had no idea. And so do you see how the clarity comes in? I mean, you can try, you got to start somewhere, one foot in front of the other, right? But the clarity isn't going to reveal itself until you start moving, and you just need to be aware of that and just know that that's what happens. And so think about, okay, I'm not a cook, so you're going to laugh. And anybody who knows me knows I am not a cook. So this analogy is going to be, some of you are going to be chuckling at this, but think about, you do a recipe just as it says, but then you go to taste it and you're like, something's missing. I followed the directions, I followed the recipe, but something's off, something's missing. So now you got to add a pinch of salt or, do whatever. And you didn't have that clarity before. And it wasn't until you took action and completed the recipe that until you had that clarity. And so now you make a note on that recipe card and say, add more salt or, whatever. Do you see what I mean? Do you see how that clarity doesn't show up until you start moving? So I hope that makes some sense. And then confuse busy with effective. All right. I mean, as women, full calendars often equal little progress. All right. Once again, if I can get my hands on your calendar, I will free time up for you. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. I will free time up for you if I can get my hands on your calendar. Because the one thing that, in order to know if you were actually effective or if you were productive or if you were executing your verb, is when you look at your calendar and you're not sure the actions you took or and and the other piece of this is, and the results that came from that action, you're busy. And that is not an effective use of your time. So I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. So I get asked to go network all the time. I mean, I get in, like, my email and all my direct messages are filled up with, I would like to meet with you one on one, for a networking call, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm very strategic, and I'm very intentional about who I accept those from, because if I'm not, I'm just going to get busy. Yeah, sure, I'm meeting a lot of great people from all over the world, but that just means they're expensive friends because they're wasting my time. I don't need expensive friends. I'm a woman in business. And so when I network, it's got to be very strategic. It's got to be very intentional and aligned with my goals and what I'm trying to accomplish. So most of the time, if a man wants to meet with me, I'm curious why. And I tell him, if your plan is to pitch me, I'm not going to spend the time and meet with you. I mean, for one, I don't accept sales pitches from anyone who I don't know. Like, no, I have a whole rule about that, but that's another story. So I only work with women. And so I only provide services to women. So any man that wants to jump on my calendar, I'm like, because otherwise I'm just going to be busy with meetings. And then I have expensive friends. And there's a rationale of, well, you don't know who he knows and who could he introduce you to and blah, 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 blah. That's not a good use of my time. I've tested the theory. I've been in business 13 years. I've tested the theory time and time and time again. It is not a good use of my time. Now, another woman in business may have tested the theory and it is a good use of her time, but that's okay. That strategy works for her. That strategy doesn't work for me. And so that's, the other piece of this. But once again, when you look at your calendar, you need to realize and look and see what actions you took. And then what are the results of those actions? And if the results from those actions is like that, how many times have you walked away from a meeting or something and go, that was a waste of time? That that is 30 minutes of my life that I will never get back, right? I know you've said it. We've all said it. And if you're saying that multiple times a week, that's not an effective use of your time. Now, you might be thinking, well, I work for an organization and they make me go to these meetings and blah, 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 blah. And I understand that. And there's a whole other strategy behind making those meetings effective, but that's not why we're here today. But if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I'll shed some light on that for you. But so this is another killer, is aiming for perfection rather than completion. How many times have you said this? If it can't be done right, it doesn't get done. So I could have said that when it came to my website. And yes, it did take me a year, but it's because I wanted to do it right. And I had a strategy behind it, I had intention behind it. And every single day I had action behind it. And every single day I made progress on my website. Okay. So now if I didn't make progress every single day towards that rebrand and updating my website, then that would not have been a good use of my time. But because every single day I made some progress, every single day I got one step closer to accomplishing the goal that I set out to accomplish, and that type of thing. And so I got to celebrate those wins every single day. I got to see the fruits of my labor come, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm one step closer. Oh my gosh, I got that section done. Oh my gosh, sometimes it was I got that sentence done, because crafting the right messages to speak to your audience takes time, and market research takes heaps of time. And so anyhow, but when it comes to most things, now the other piece of this that I should tell you is my website was live while I was going through this process, because I wanted people to know I'm a legitimate business, but I was very clear, I'm under construction. However, here are still some things, and I let them see. I was very transparent, and I'm like, this is the fixed part and this is the I'm still working on part. And I just let them see my progress. And I was very open and transparent about that. And so, because I went back to done is always better than perfect. And I couldn't afford, as a woman in business, to not have a website up and live, because otherwise, if a cold audience was looking for me, they would have never found me, for one. And for two, if I would have said, oh, my website's under construction, so you can't see it, that doesn't convey, that you can lose trust over that sentence pretty quickly as a woman in business. And so I knew all of that. And so I was like, done is better than perfect. And, I had the finished construction, and then I had the under construction part. And I was just transparent. It took me a year till I was all done and all good. So, anyhow, and for some of you, that's going to make your butt pucker, because it's like, no, I can't put it out until it's all done, till it's all perfect. And no way could I ever do that. And, you know, just encourage you to read the quote that is on the page there. And this is a big one. Women do this all the time. We underestimate how long things are going to take. How many times have you done that? Your kid comes home and has a project due on Thursday, and it's Monday, and you think, oh, we'll have time to get it done Wednesday night. Well, then, the valve underneath the kitchen or the bathroom sink breaks and on Wednesday night. And so now you've got to try to deal with that and get your child's project, help them with their project that's due the next day, right? And so typically and this is, once again, I have done so much market research on this, that believe me, I have done so much market research on this, that we typically underestimate the time it's going to take us to do something by double. So if we think it's going to take us 15 minutes, it's actually going to take us 30. All right. Now, there's always some exceptions, right? Like if you're used to driving the same route every day and you know that it takes you 35 minutes to get to work, that's typical, sure. But how many times throughout the year does something happen? Is there an accident? Does the road get closed? Is, something like it's unpassable because of, black ice, or, just something along those lines. And so if you don't plan for those types of things, the next thing you know, now it takes you an hour to get to work because of the reroute and the detour and the new map that you had to create to get you to where you were going. But if you planned for that, it might only take you, 45 minutes instead of an additional hour. And so there's just all kinds of different things that are can be super beneficial. But when it comes to executing a task, typically the time that it takes is double it. If your child wants you to bake cupcakes for a school program on Friday, and you think, oh, that'll take me about an hour, double it, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to get interrupted. The phone's going to ring. You're going to get a text. You're going to, the family is going to be coming in and asking you a million questions. And then the laundry buzzer is going to ding, and you're going to have to put the clothes from the washer into the dryer. And the next thing you know, your hour is gone and you haven't even started the cupcakes. So see what I mean? And then the other thing is, we can often tie our self-worth to the outcomes. And it's like, unless I achieve 100% of this goal, nothing. Well, no, I mean, celebrate every step. That's why I love the fact of daily action, because daily action equals daily wins. Every time you execute something for 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's a win. That's a win. So I'm trying to help you reframe some of these thoughts of, things that can sabotage our success, and whether we're conscious about them or not. So, anyhow, but don't try going it alone. How many times have you heard me mention already about an accountability group, or a partner, or a coach, or a mentor, or your bestie? Going it alone is lonely, lonely, lonely. And it takes us a really long time to get to where we're going when we go at it alone. You want to talk about doubling the amount of time. That's why working with a coach, like someone like me, I can get someone to where they want to go in 90 days in something that would have taken them 6, 9, 12, maybe even 18 months. And I can get them there in 90 days. Right. And so that's one of the reasons why women pay to coach with me. So, yeah, you can go it alone, but it's going to take longer. It's going to be harder. You're going to learn, you're going to make a lot more mistakes, and it's just, your time is going to get ate up. So, what are the things that you can draw in people for? What are the things that you can, make it be a group effort instead of a solo effort, and, different types of things. And then how many times do we say, yes, because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. We don't want to let somebody down. So we say yes to things that don't serve us. I got asked, I am really good friends with this one man, and he's a bookkeeper, and he has a business problem, and he wanted to like pick my brain about it and stuff. And normally I don't mind, normally I don't mind, but right now I'm real like I'm not fake busy. I'm really busy. And I have appointments that are producing results, and I have deliverables for clients that I have to get out, and different types of things. And I have in person, like this. I had an in person speaking arrangement that I needed to create this for. And now, because life happened, I am now, spending my evening doing a video, which is something I hadn't planned for. And so it's one of those things. And so by saying yes too often, we can, that leads to burnout super, super quick. So I told Todd, I said, normally I would love to help you. And I'm like, but I don't have time in my calendar until like February 4th. And he's like, February 4th. And I said, that's the soonest I can get you in. I said, dude, I want to help you. You're my buddy. And I'm like, but in order for me to provide you with the best service I can possibly provide you, that's the soonest you can get on my calendar. And he was like, cool, I'll take it. Now, did he like it? No. But is he on my calendar for February 4th? Yes. And so, and now I'm going to be able to provide service to him with my best self showing up. I'm not gonna, be feeling like I've got 10 million irons in the fire that I need to deal with. And he's not my market. He's not, I'm doing this at no charge for him because he's my buddy. And so, I mean, sure, I said yes. However, there were healthy boundaries set around that. And once again, did he like it? No. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I wasn't going to add something into my calendar that was going to make me frantic, or and I also wasn't going to put something in my calendar that I wasn't going to be able to execute to the best of my ability. And so, and when I'm tired, I'm not at the best of my ability, right? Like, and I know that about myself. And so I set a healthy boundary. Just is what it is. And then the other thing is we set very vague goals. I want to grow my business, or I want to drop 2 dress sizes. Great. What does that mean? Right? What does that mean? I want to save money. Once again, what does that mean? You got to get specific, so I provided an example there. Oftentimes we delay decisions to avoid discomfort. And that can be a financial decision. And it's like, because and this happens all the time. Women work with me, and they send me, they pay their $4,000. And then they're like, oh, I had $4,000 and now I don't, right? And that's a little bit of a butt pucker discomfort moment. But then when they realize, the return on their investment and all that is, 5 to 7 times that investment within 90 days, they're like, okay, I feel much better, but I have that, temporary discomfort because I had the money and now I don't. So that's a good example of that. But the decision that they make keeps them moving forward, and it gets them there much more quickly, and they get a return on their investment. So do you see what I mean? So oftentimes we delay making a decision because we want to avoid discomfort. That's like, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. How many times have you said that? Or the first of the month, I'm going to start a diet. We delay decisions to avoid discomfort because it's going to be hard. It isn't going to be easy. And for me, like to me, that's not fun. And I don't like to do things that aren't fun. And so definitely that's a decision that I'm going to delay. And then Monday comes around and life happened. And oh, well, Monday already got blown. So now I'm going to do it next Monday. And, the cycle just goes on and on. You know where I'm going. And then we don't define our failure modes in advance. And this is when things break down. And so I want you to think about it like this. If you don't change the oil in your vehicle, it's going to break down, right? Like you've got to maintain that. You got to get it in for service, and they got to do all the things and the things associated with the oil change. So preparing for failure is the lube that keeps the engine running. It's okay if you snickered a little bit there. The junior high girl in me snickers every time I say that. But so you've got to prepare to, like, what are those failure modes that are going to get you in trouble? And exhaustion is one of them. And it's just like, I'm done. I am tapped out. I'm burnt out. I'm stressed out. I'm fried. And that's from your calendar having control over you versus you having control over your calendar. And I'll talk more about that in a minute as well. So, and then we forget to celebrate our successes. Remember, daily daily execution of your verb equals daily wins. Celebrate that. I did it. I did it. It might have been a thing. It was unpleasant, but I ate the frog and I did it anyways, because I want to achieve this goal and I want to execute that verb. And so even though I didn't enjoy the activity, it was 15 minutes. You can do anything for 15 minutes, even if it's hard, even if it's not enjoyable, right? And if you know that it's going to get you to where you want to go, I mean, just think about it like that. I think about, like getting my eyebrows waxed. It's a little bit of an unpleasant experience. I mean, not that it's super painful, but it's a little bit unpleasant when they rip it off and your eyes start to water. But a little bit of discomfort, the end result is worth it. So just thinking about it, like that. And so think about your failure modes, the things that are going to get in the way of you being successful. And then what's your prevention plan, for those types of moments when, your boss throws something on you that you didn't expect. And, how are you going to manage that and still keep moving forward in your goals and the things that you want to accomplish throughout the year. So set your plan. Okay, I need a quick drink here. The next strategy is the verb remix. And so just like any, New Year's resolution or goals, it gets stale and we're bored with it, or it just doesn't, it's not as fulfilling as we thought it was going to be. The passion that we had for it initially lost. Too many things got in the way, so we lost momentum, and it takes a lot of energy to get back up. And you're not starting from scratch, but you're also not starting where you left off. That's really hard to do. So somewhere in the middle there, and then you got to get that momentum back going, and it takes energy to do that. So anyhow, you got to really be conscious of these things. But when you have a plan and you're conscious that those things are going to happen, thinking about, the intensity, what changes by season. And I don't necessarily mean by, like, in Ohio, the winter season that lasts 9 months long, or, whatever. Like, I don't mean that. I mean, it could be, it could be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But it's that the season of what you're in right now, like you're really motivated or you're really focused on this, but then the season changes, and something happens, and perhaps, you know, um, something major happens, and life gets flipped on its head temporarily. And so you've got to make some massive adjustments in a short amount of time, you know. So, and then the time commitment, you know, like maybe you underestimated the amount of time it was going to take you, and you realized that your metrics of success weren't really in a line with what you were hoping to achieve. And so now I have to go and revisit those and different types of things. And perhaps some of the tools that you put in place, because I don't know about you, but I have a small Staples store in my office because I have all these post-it notes and different tools that I thought, oh, these are going to help me be productive, and they're still in the package. Well, they're not helpful if they're still in the package. And so, or our support changes, and it's like, wow, I really thought, my bestie was going to support me in this. And every time I talk to her about it, she's poo-pooing on it, like my coach saying, I'm feeling uncomfortable about, the word explosion and explosive. And she's like, that makes me uncomfortable. Well, I didn't expect that from her. I expected it from other people, but not from Michelle. And so I had to think about that, and I had to make a decision on whether or not I was gonna follow her lead or if I was going to stay true to myself. And I obviously stayed true to myself. And then our definitions of wins can change. And this is something, if you don't know your own definition of success or your own definition of a win, I encourage you to establish that. But know that it's going to change. Once again, this is a working document. This isn't meant to be set it and forget it. This isn't meant to be like etched in stone where nothing can change. It's like, nope, that's the plan you establish. That's the plan you stick on. Bleh, right? That's not life. That's not realistic. So, so think about some different iterations of your verb, and think about the times when you lose momentum. And so for me, February and March they're low energy months for me. I'm tired of the gray. I'm so ready to see the sunshine. I'm so ready to get outside and play because I love to be in my yard. I'm so ready to open my pool. And I'm in February and March, that those things seem so far away. They just seem so far away in February and March. And so my energy dips. I know that about myself. So I have to be super careful during February and March. I've got to do some iterations. I've got to make some adjustments. I've got to plan to fail and say, okay, Angie, these are some things I got to call in the troops. That's one of the tools that I do. I got to call in the troops, and I've got to really rely heavily on my accountability group and my support system and my bestie and everything. And I've got to do things that bring me joy, because I just get so tired of the gray, and my brain runs on solar power. So the energy is depleting because, I haven't seen the sun for a few months. And so I just know that about myself. So I've got to make some changes. I got to plan for that, right? Because I know it's going to happen. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to do what I can to ameliorate that situation so that I can keep moving forward and experiencing a success and a win. So here's a fun one that I love to do. I love this strategy because it's so much fun. And you want to talk about the learning that happens from all the parties involved. It's unbelievable. So there's a reverse mentor swap model, and find someone who's 10 years younger than you, another generation. Not, you really want, like I'm a Gen Z. And so, like a millennial would be a great person for me to reverse mentor and have them mentor me. What can they teach me? And believe me, they can teach me a lot. And or someone who is a completely different industry. And so, like, I have had mentors who are in like the agriculture field, and that's, yeah, agriculture is something that I'm interested in. I mean, I grew up on a farm and different things, so I appreciate it. I have a lot of respect for it. But as far as today's agriculture goes, it's very different than it was in the 70s and 80s, right? Agriculture has changed. And so someone who's a completely different industry than I am, and we did a reverse mentor swap, and she was like 12 years younger than me. And I learned so much. It was amazing. And it was so enjoyable. And then vice versa. And then I also imparted some wisdom on her, and we it was such an enriching experience for both of us. So so think about that. Who can, and if you're not sure who this is, ask someone in your circle of influence to introduce you, you know and say, hey, who do you know? This is the type of person I'm looking for to do a reverse mentorship with. Who do you know? Who can you introduce me to? And you might need to interview a couple until you find a right match, and that's okay. But because the magic happens when you find the right match. So really think about that particular strategy. And then the physical anchor. So these are these are just lots of things, and I don't have it on. I planned on wearing it tomorrow, and I didn't put it on for this recording, but I have a bracelet that is an anchor for me, and I just have to look at it, or I just have to touch it, or be cognizant that it's there. And it is it's a trigger for me. It's a physical anchor that reminds me of the things that I want to be reminded of. And so I went through all the different types of learning, and probably some learning styles that you maybe haven't heard of. And so learning about, and we're all typically a combination of learning styles. So what's best? Like, I am so visual. I'm absolutely so visual. And I'm also tactile. And so by having that bracelet, it's a visual, it's something I can touch, it's something I can see, and it helps me a lot. If you saw my office, I have messages and different things like I have one, right here. I can't see myself, so I can't see if you can really see what's on this, but I have this right here to remind me. And I have my frog, and I have my time blocker, and all of these different anchors that help keep me moving forward, that help keep me rooted in action, so that I can have a daily win. And every time this goes off, it's a win. And it's like, yes, I did that activity, and I worked through it. And sure, it was 30 minutes of unenjoyable time, but it's done. And that, I can celebrate that. So, thinking about those kinds of things, these are just some examples, and how that can really help keep you moving forward. And so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but what's your accountability architecture? And this can be, maybe you just do a WhatsApp chat or a text chat, or you meet for lunch once a month, or you have breakfast before business twice a month, or whatever that looks like for you and your accountability. But have it be structured. And sometimes the best we can do is a micro commitment. And it's like, look, right now, all I have the capacity for is this micro commitment. I can't commit to 15 minutes today, but I am going to commit to 5 minutes every single day, because, just the thought of doing one more thing, my head might explode. I may have said that a time or two in my life, but I will commit to 5 minutes. And so that's a micro commitment, and it's just something small and quick, but it's still action. It's still forward progress. It's still something to celebrate. It's still a win, and you're still moving forward. So anyhow, so I talk more about the, micro commitment. And then there is just something about that public accountability, and that's why I see it on social media all the time, like women, especially, who are going through a health journey, and they do before and after pictures, and they're talking about their journey and stuff, because they use that as an accountability mechanism, as an accountability tool. And some people are put off by that, and some people embrace it. And but at the end of the day, that's what works for her, and that's okay. That's what keeps her rooted in action. That's what keeps her moving forward. That's what keeps her eye on the prize. And honestly, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Whether anyone sees it or anyone comments, or no matter what people think, it doesn't matter, because that's what she needs. That's what she wants. That's what works best for her. So whatever your public stake is, and your public stake can just be, texting it to your best friend, and say, look, I'm on this challenge and I'm creating my verb of the year, and I'm committed to executing something towards my verb of the year and how this ties into my larger goals, blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted you to know, and, feel free to ask me about it, or, something like that. So the other piece is set a monthly reminder in your calendar. Once again, only 5, 10, 15 minutes, doesn't have to be long. Perhaps you can do this monthly verb audit with your accountability group or your accountability partner. There's no right or wrong way, but the key is you don't want to waste too much time. And after a month, you're like, I think I need to make some adjustments. I think, or maybe this verb just isn't the right one for me, because then this verb keeps coming up, and you need to make an adjustment. But the goal is here, by doing a monthly audit, is that that's not wasted time. Okay. There's still time for you to execute and have it move you towards achieving the goals that you want to achieve in 2026, with your verb as the top of mind, as the catalyst, as the energy, as the action behind what that is. And then, we've talked a lot about the emergency pivot, thinking about those types of things. And then there's a little pivot test, like before changing your verb mid-year, or, whatever, really get honest with yourself. And is it more about that you're uncomfortable, or are there other things that are presenting themselves because you have more clarity? So going back to that clarity piece, because often when we have more clarity, we make different decisions. The more clarity we have, the better decisions we make. Well, now you have more clarity than you did when you first started. And so now that I have more clarity, these are some things that I need to adjust or whatever. And perhaps it's change your verb altogether. So really think about that. And then this is your final commitment. And this is between you and you. And this is something that, this is a promise you're making to yourself. And so, and you're saying, it's not because it's easy. You're doing it because I know that it's going to transform me into, the leader that I'm becoming, and it's going to help me achieve my goals, and, all of the different things. So there's a lot that can, by putting your name in there and actually signing it and giving it a date, is so powerful. And I'm going to use, and you probably have heard this story about Jim Carrey. So at one point in time in Jim Carrey's life, he wrote himself a check for $1 million. And the date, I forget how he did the date. And he kept it in his wallet. For years, he kept it in his wallet. And he says, one of the greatest joys and moments in my life when I could actually take that check to the bank and cash it because there was enough money in it. And so that was his commitment. That was his final commitment to himself. He put pen to paper. He made it tangible. It was his anchor. It was rooted, and there was emotion behind it. And so it served so many purposes for him. It served as a reminder for him to keep his eye on his prize and to keep doing the things he knew was necessary to do in order to get him so that he could cash that check. And so, so that's a powerful story and a power example of kind of putting all of this together into one story. So, and I have a couple of, just some post resources in there. And then a little bit for those of you who don't know me, just some different ways that you can contact me. So, the other piece of this is I have a great, upcoming course on calendar control. And so all of that information is going to get set out to you. Now, the one thing with the calendar control, It does have a strict deadline, like January 25th. It's January 19th. So it's very strict. It's coming up. So quick decisions if it's something that's appealing to you. But once again, that'll be in the email and you'll have that readily available. Once again, reach out to me. It has been a pleasure, although this was a little bit unique and unorthodox compared to how we would have liked it. Hey, we're leaders. We do what we do. We roll with it, how we roll with it. And I will look forward to talking with each and every one of you very soon. Bye.